Sons of Guns. TheQuestingDragon here, and today we're going to be talking about the Antikythera Mechanism. Antikythera Mechanism, however you want to say it. This was discovered by sponge divers at the year 1900 and has taken almost a century or more to really discover what it is and does. So if you're interested and it sounds cool to you, let's get into it and check it out. Okay? So, first of all, let's look at what they found. So, this is what it looked like when they found it. Okay? So, obviously, it kind of looks like a hunk of corroded brass, which is what it is. It also had some pieces of wood attached to it. There are 7 fragments of this mechanism, which I am showing you right now. And you can see, if you look closely on this one, there is quite a bit of writing on it. There's inscriptions in ancient Greek all over this. So, how do I go back now? Oh my god, what did I do? So, if we are seeing all of these, then it's kind of like, well, how do they know this is anything? And what is this? It looks so corroded. It doesn't really seem like it's anything. Well, that's where it gets pretty interesting. So, first of all, this was discovered in 1901 by sponge divers in a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera. That's why they call it that, because that's where it was found. So it was found in 1901. Actually, different sources say it was found in 1900 by sponge divers, and then in 1901 is when it was brought to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. The next year, Greek archaeologists noticed that there's a visible bronze gear wheel split open inside of one of the calcified lumps. So this is the first kind of glimpse that they had that there was gears inside of this. Then, between then and the 1930s, researchers recognized that it is some kind of astronomical calculator or complex astrolabe, though many mainstream historians remained skeptical, suspecting it might just be a modern clock that accidentally dropped into the ancient shipwreck. But then in the 50s, it got interesting. We started studying it with X-rays and gamma ray imaging, and we could see through the calcified layers and see that there was quite a few gears. So going on, now we're publishing a paper in 1959 saying that this is an ancient Greek computer. Sometime around 100 BC was built. And there's more minor, famed oceanographer Jacques Cousteau explores the Antikythera wreck and recovers additional small pieces of the mechanism. So this is kind of how they were able to more accurately place the time. Now you couldn't question if this was found in that wreck. They found more pieces of the same mechanism in that wreck. So then they used 3D X-ray computing tomography, CT scanning in 2005, and they mapped 82 surviving fragments. We looked at the main 7, but there's actually quite a few fragments. And they revealed that there's thousands of tiny Greek text characters hidden inside the metal plates. And it was confirmed in 2006 that this device predicts solar, lunar eclipses, and other astrological events. A team at the University College in London in 2021 created a complete digital model of the front gearing system, solving how the device mapped the complex retrograde motions of the 5 known classical planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Wow. So what are we saying here? It sounds like we're saying that there's an ancient computer. That's all it is to me. So yes, it is ancient. Our computer device, why as the world's oldest known analog computer. Wow. Okay, so they are dating it somewhere between 205 and 600, or sorry, and 60 BC. I've seen several dates on this. You should just know it's BC, early around the turn of the millennium, but before the turn of millennium. Um, so why is this so important? Basically, look at what it could do, and they figured all this out. They've put it all together. They've studied this, like I said, for over a century, and they're actually in agreement on this. You can go to Wikipedia, which is actually where we were looking at these images earlier, and you can read clearly that even Wikipedia does not deny that this is an ancient hand-powered orrery model of the solar system, and it's the oldest known example of an analog computer. Okay, so Wikipedia is on the same page as us today. Nice. Um, but it was able to tell the positions of the sun and moon. It was able to predict solar and lunar eclipses. It was tracking solar calendars, such as the 365-day Egyptian calendar, and also lunisolar calendars. It was tracking when the 4-year cycle of the athletic games was going, the Pan-Hellenic athletic competitions, including the Olympics. And now they believe that it tracks the motions of the planets. And when I was reading more about this, the first way that they knew that it was doing this is because the inscription said it was doing that. And then, like I was saying earlier, in early 2020s, what did they say, 2021, they seem to have figured out how those gears worked. Obviously, everything is very corroded, but gears are interesting because just when you know the circumference of the gear and how many teeth are on a certain section of it, you can pretty much figure out how many teeth there was on the whole thing because the teeth are spaced evenly. Um, so the level of miniaturization and mechanical engineering present in the device was unprecedented for its time. Complex gear-based technology of comparable sophistication did not reappear in historical records until the development of mechanical astronomical clocks in Europe during the 14th century. Whoa. Um, that's crazy. So we thought that complex gearing like this was not made or discovered until the 14th century AD. So we're about 1500 years off. 14 to 1500 years off. This is the only surviving piece of this that there is, which is really strange to me. And when they made the replica, it looks something like this. So obviously there's a lot of inscriptions on the actual gears and dials, but there's inscriptions on a front-facing pad, and it was encased in wood, and they did find fragments of the wood when they found the artifact. I've heard that there's over 240 gears in this altogether, but it seems like that is more speculative and that some people disagree and think that there's a lot less. Um, or less, not a lot less, but there's at least around 200. Wow. So this is, what's confusing. It's like, so the Greeks were spending their time doing this, apparently. I just don't quite understand how we don't know about this. So the Greeks were using this to navigate, apparently. They were using this to track upcoming events like eclipses and the Olympics. So why didn't they write about it? We have a lot of writings from the ancient Greeks. Surely also the Romans would have known about this coming off of the ancient Greek culture, but we have seen nothing written about this. So why, I guess? Why haven't we seen anything written about this? There's a lot of theories about that. I think the one that I tend to like the best is just like masonry in the ancients and even today, there is a level of secretiveness with some of the greater knowledge within that field. Definitely in the past. Um, I think that that might have been what this was. Maybe only people who were advanced astronomers and had passed a certain level of initiation were allowed to even know about this thing or learn about how it works. And so the number of people would be very small. Um, that's maybe the best um, explanation of why we don't have any surviving writings of this. Obviously, the explanations go into conspiracies like this has been suppressed. Any writings about this that were found over time were systematically taken out of the historical record, you know, possibly. I don't like to jump right to conspiracies, but at the same time, we know there's a lot of bullshit going on. So maybe. I'm not saying it's not that. That doesn't seem to be as easy as people say it is. Like, we have so many surviving writings from ancient Greece. It would be shocking if there was stuff that was written about this and it was taken out. But maybe it was. Um, so this is what's kind of another confusing element of this. Where did this thing come from? Is it a one-off? Was there only one of these, or is there like a whole lineage of this technology that advanced over time to become what we're seeing here? Because this is very complex. 240 or even 200 gears is extremely complex. Some of the gears have over 200 teeth, evenly spaced, made out of brass. I mean, that's way more complex than what we were told the ancient Greeks could do. We knew that they had basically wooden gears for like water wheels and things like that. We had no idea that they were making complex brass gearing, interlocking gearing that made complex computing mechanisms. That's way beyond what we thought they were doing. In fact, we didn't think anyone was doing that until the 14th century AD. So, yeah, I know that I'm going to keep saying that point, but it's just like that's the most important thing is that a technology that was quite advanced was kept from the historical record or from the historical story for that long. And then we rediscovered it basically with like Swiss clockmakers and stuff. Um, that seems wild. So most people think this is one of multiple machines. That there was probably a time that the this Hellenistic culture was making, basic ones of these, and then they got more and more advanced, and then this one was somewhere in the mix. They might not have been the last one. Most certainly wasn't the first one. Is kind of how scientists are looking at it, because you'd have to build up to this kind of knowledge. There would have been prototypes or earlier models or more simple models that came before this that didn't track as many things, maybe. Um, but another origin that's possible for this is what if the Greeks didn't start this, but what if this was a technology that was passed down to them? Um, Obviously, Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher, is very famous for talking about Atlantis. So I wonder, is this a gift from the Atlanteans? Is this technology that survived a pre-Diluvian world? Um, when I say pre-Diluvian, I mean pre-flood. You're most likely most familiar with the biblical flood story of Noah, but there are flood stories all over the world. Atlantis is one of them, and it would seem that it is possible that there was technology before this time that we don't know about. Heck, if there was technology, 2,000 years ago that we don't know about, that we didn't know existed until recently, then what's to say there's not technology from 5, 10,000 years ago that we just don't know about, that we've forgotten? I think that's actually quite logical to believe that that's possible. Um, so Anyway, this is one example of basically technology. Ooh, that's not what I want to move. How do I get my capture off of there? Oh, I'm so confused. There we go. Okay. So The Antikythera mechanism shown on the right is one example of lost technologies. This is not a real image, it's something I made on AI, but all of these are real artifacts that I basically put to make it look like it was on one museum display. But on the left, we have the Baghdad battery. Supposedly, this is a clay pot with copper instrumentation inside that they believe was a battery. It has all of the chemical components required for a battery. This is from 250 BC. That does not fit within our story of electricity, basically. If we're storing electrical current back before the turn of the millennium, then, you know, someone's got to explain this to Ben Franklin and everyone else who's attributed to discovering electricity. It seems like the ancients might have known about it. Then we've got these Roman dodecahedrons. This, like, it's a shape that has these dots on every point, basically, or these spheres on every point. There's a ton of these things, and they're kind of cool. Um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily evidence of a lost technology, but they're not written about at all. And we found a lot of these dodecahedrons. They're pretty cool. They're pretty precise. They're made out of brass. They're very geometrical, like they have matching geometrical sides. Everything measures out the same, matching circles, matching everything. So those are really cool, and I would like to see where in our historical record those appear. It seems like they're just something we start to find everywhere, and we're like, what the heck? Where are these from? It's another good example of that. We don't have everything about our past written down, so our history is a story of the best evidence and the best, um, really, story that we can make about the past. One of my favorites is this one in the back, the schist disc. This is from the first dynasty of Egypt. Um, this one's wild. This is made out of one piece of granite, um, supposedly hand carved with copper tools. But what's interesting about it is they don't have a wheel at this time. The wheel hasn't been invented. And this schist disc looks kind of like a turbine or a water propeller or something. It makes me think of some kind of mechanical function. That middle hollowed out part or circular part looks like it would fit over maybe an axle or something else and be turned. And this is made out of one piece of granite. Granite's a super hard stone, 7 or an 8 on the Mohs scale, depending on the type of granite. It's very difficult to carve, and look at how precise this thing is. If you want to go on a side quest, the schist disc is an extremely precise ancient granite artifact from Egypt. Doesn't fit our timeline. There's nothing else like it. There's no explanation of what it is in the Egyptian museum. It says that it's a vase. Yeah, someone carved this by hand for a vase. I'm sure. That doesn't make sense to me. But and then the last item I put on here was the Quimbaya gold artifacts. These are a bunch of little golden. They were toys or something. They're so small, or figurines, but a lot of them look like planes, like commercial airline planes. So that's weird because these are supposedly from 300 to 1500 AD, way before the Wright brothers, way before any planes were really drawn or anything like that other than Da Vinci. But these don't even look like his drawings. These look like actual planes. So that's a wild one. If you want to look at any of these items, that's why I brought them up, because all of these things question our timeline. And I think that's important because a lot of people in the historical, archaeological, or academic world, they want to make it sound like we know all of our history, like this has been sorted out. All 5 of these items are clear reminders that we don't, and that we're still going to keep discovering things about our past that we don't know, and some of them are mind-blowing, like pretty much all of these items right here. So I'm interested in that. Hopefully, you guys are too. Um, I don't know. These kind of things are something that I don't think is talked about enough. I would have loved to learn about these in school. It would have given me this idea that um, there are still more mysteries about our history. Not everything is known. A lot of what's written in our textbook is speculative because we're telling a story based off of the information that we have and the evidence that we have found. So it's not fair to just assume that we have everything figured out. So I guess I'm just going to leave you with a thought. So I want you guys to. Oh, I'm frozen on that one. Okay, won't do that. That's okay. So what does this mean? This means that there's chapters of our past that we don't know about. In my previous videos, I did talk about how there is a good chance that there was a culture that was seafaring and was connecting the continents in a way that is not in our historical story right now. This is evident by construction that's found all over the world, as well as artifacts. Um, but it does seem like there was a global connection, and a lot of people, like myself, tend to lean towards the pre-Diluvian world, the world before a flood, or the world before the Younger Dryas, or possibly a world before the last ice age. We know humanity and human skeletal remains have gone back much further than that, so we know our ancestors lived through the ice age, they lived through the Younger Dryas, and there's a good chance that those events and those hard points of human history reset our technologies, our knowledge back in time. So you're going to see this theme come up a lot in my videos, but it's because I think the evidence is mounting that there was a lost chapter of our history, and not a small chapter, but something that was probably globe spanning and I don't know, and is exciting. I don't know. Maybe they built the pyramids. Maybe they built what we find in Peru. I don't know. Um, there's so many people who would argue that, but it definitely seems like the dating on those structures is questionable. And when you find something like the Antikythera mechanism that shows people, oh yeah, we actually had computers before AD, but it's not a computer the way you would think of one. It's not. It doesn't have a screen, which everyone would think of for a computer. But it was complex uh, analog gearing that would basically be able to calculate things. So this is an analog computer. This is what our basic analog computers were. And it is speculated that if the ancient Greeks knew what they had in the Antikythera mechanism, like understood the technology better, that they would have reached basically going to space in like 400 or 500 years or less, based on our progress in recent past. Which also makes me think they had this thing in ancient Greece, but maybe they didn't fully understand it. Maybe there was only, it was passed down to them. Maybe it was something that was existing earlier and was given to them. I don't know. These are all very speculative, but it does make you wonder. Our story's obviously not fully correct. So let's keep looking at these things. I'll make another video soon. I have a really exciting interview coming up on August 6th, which will be about the Cyclopean Walls. And this is going to be with Enrique Agostino. Agostino. I'm not saying it right. He's from Portugal, but I'm excited. Um, so, anyway, you guys, hang in there. Don't let them drag you through all these lies. Be open to new information. We're all learning right now. Um, and they're trying to keep certain things from us. I don't know who the they is, but most people feel it. They're trying to separate us. One of the ways they would do that is by keeping truth from us of all different kinds. Contemporary, Epstein files, ancient past, and it's hard to know why. Maybe I don't even want to speculate on it right now, but there's things from the ancient past that I don't think they want us to know, and let's try to figure it out. Let's work on it. Let's get there. Anyway, love you guys. Keep it real. I am Question Dragon. Have a great day.